America's farmers stand at the crossroads of a crisis that feels both familiar and terrifyingly new. Across rural landscapes, from the flat cornfields of Iowa to the rolling soybean acres of Virginia, growers are grappling with a convergence of forces, economic, political, and demographic, that threaten to destabilize one of the country's oldest and most essential industries. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. Long celebrated as the backbone of the nation, America's farmers are now enduring pressures that could upend their way of life, diminish food security, and reorder the balance of global agriculture. For generations, farming has been more than a job. It has been a calling, a culture, and for many families, a sacred inheritance passed down through bloodlines. President Donald Trump, in a candid aside earlier this week, acknowledged this deep connection between farmers and the soil they work. "They love their way of life, and they love that dirt," he remarked. "They don't know how to do anything else, but they don't want to do anything else." His comment, while heartfelt, glossed over the severity of the challenges confronting farmers today. Love for the land, however profound, may no longer be enough to protect them from an economic storm that rivals some of the darkest moments in agricultural history. Many farmers and agricultural economists now draw comparisons between the current turmoil and the Great Farm Crisis of the 1980s. That earlier collapse was triggered by a toxic cocktail of rising interest rates, collapsing crop prices, and excessive debt. Families who had borrowed heavily during the boom years of the 1970s suddenly found themselves unable to make payments, and tens of thousands lost their land to foreclosure. Suicide rates among farmers climbed. Communities unraveled. The scars remain visible in rural America decades later. Today, the numbers suggest history may be repeating itself. The U.S. Department of Agriculture projects that total farm sector debt will climb to an unprecedented $561.8 billion in 2025, a 3.7% increase from the year before. The Kansas City Federal Reserve has reported that much of this borrowing comes from small and medium-sized farms, which lack the financial buffers of corporate agribusinesses. What alarms analysts is not only the scale of the borrowing but the declining capacity to service it. Interest rates remain high compared to the last decade, while farm incomes have flattened or declined. Bankruptcy data provides a stark confirmation of this trend. Researchers at the University of Arkansas have found that Chapter 12 bankruptcies, designed to offer debt relief to family farmers and fishermen, nearly doubled in the first quarter of 2025, with 88 cases filed. And many fear this is just the leading edge of a much larger wave. Bankruptcies are on the rise and you will see many more on the auction block in the coming months, especially this fall, warned John Boyd, founder of the National Black Farmers Association. Boyd's own story illustrates the magnitude of the crisis. Farming since the early 1980s, he tends 1,500 acres in Virginia, producing soybeans, corn, and wheat, while also raising 150 head of beef cattle. Over 4 decades, he has weathered fluctuations in markets and policy. Yet 2025, he says, marks a new and frightening chapter, the first time he has been unable to secure an operating loan. Operating loans are the lifeblood of farming, providing the working capital needed to purchase seed, fertilizer, fuel, and pay seasonal labor. Denial of such loans is effectively a denial of a farm's ability to function. "I was turned down by banks for the simple fact of low commodity prices due to the president's tariffs," Boyd explained. The logic is straightforward but brutal. U.S. tariffs on imports and exports have increased costs for foreign buyers, reducing global demand for American crops. Reduced demand has translated into lower prices for exports such as corn and soybeans. Corn futures, for example, have fallen roughly 15% since January, according to Trading Economics. Meanwhile, input costs, fertilizer, seed, fuel, machinery maintenance, are at record highs. For farmers, the math no longer works. Mexico buys U.S. corn, China buys soybeans, Boyd said. "We cannot survive on low crop prices with input costs at an all-time high. I have not seen such political chaos like this, and I have been farming since 1983. Yet opinions within the agricultural community remain deeply divided. A survey by Purdue University in May revealed that 70% of U.S. farmers believe tariffs will eventually strengthen American agriculture, despite the pain they currently inflict. Some argue that tariffs represent a necessary sacrifice, a tool to pressure trade partners such as China into buying more American goods in the future. For many farmers, especially those in Midwestern states that voted heavily for Trump, this stance blends patriotism with hope. But others warn the gamble is too risky. Caleb Ragland, president of the American Soybean Association, sounded an alarm before the Senate Finance Committee. Make no mistake, American soybean farmers do stand at the edge of a cliff and will suffer if tariffs are not replaced with trade agreements that reduce tariffs before our harvest this fall. Ragland emphasized the danger of permanently losing international markets. Once foreign buyers turn to countries like Brazil or Argentina for soybeans, or Ukraine for grain, they may never return to U.S. suppliers, even if tariffs are lifted later. The crisis has inevitably become a political flashpoint. A USDA spokesperson recently placed blame on the previous administration, declaring, "Over the last 4 years, the Biden administration left USDA in complete disarray and dysfunction, and that's why farmers were being left behind. The entire farm economy has been hurt by Biden's inaction. Over the last 4 years, our trade agenda favored foreign competitors over America's farmers, ranchers, and producers." This rhetoric reflects how agriculture, once a relatively bipartisan issue, has become caught in the broader polarization of American politics. Each party accuses the other of neglect or betrayal, while farmers themselves are left navigating the fallout. For many, the debates in Washington feel distant compared to the day-to-day struggle of keeping their farms afloat. Even if farmers manage to survive financially, another obstacle looms: labor shortages. American farm and ranch families need a workforce that is ready, willing, and available, said Michael Marsh, president and CEO of the National Council of Agricultural Employers. The shortage of these workers is perhaps the most significant challenge facing U.S. agriculture. Historically, much of this workforce has been supplied by migrant laborers, particularly from Mexico and Central America. But recent years have seen a decline in available workers due to stricter immigration enforcement, demographic shifts, and competition from other industries offering higher wages. For crops like fruits, vegetables, and dairy, labor-intensive sectors, this shortage is crippling. Unharvested produce rots in the fields, compounding financial losses. The crisis is not only a story of farmers but of consumers, too. If the pressures facing farms lead to widespread bankruptcies, consolidation, or reduced production, the ripple effects will reach grocery store shelves. Declining domestic production could mean greater reliance on foreign imports, exposing the U.S. to vulnerabilities in global supply chains. Price volatility could increase, making food less affordable for millions of households. What is at stake, in short, is not just rural livelihoods but national food security. Resilience and uncertainty. Yet, amid the hardship, there remains a stubborn resilience. Farmers continue to plant, harvest, and hope. Rural communities still gather at auctions, co-ops, and county fairs. Many see themselves as part of a lineage that has endured droughts, floods, recessions, and political upheavals. But the margin for survival is shrinking. Whether America's farmers can weather this new storm will depend not only on their endurance but also on the policy choices made in Washington and the outcomes of delicate trade negotiations abroad. The future of U.S. agriculture may hinge on whether leaders can craft solutions that stabilize prices, secure foreign markets, and ensure a viable workforce. For now, the picture is grim but not yet final. The fields are still being sown, combines still roll across the plains, and the dream of passing the farm to the next generation has not disappeared. But for many families, that dream feels increasingly fragile, dependent on forces far beyond their